Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Things are not looking good for Starlink right now. The government is cracking down on people who are using Starlink illegally in South Africa. The party is over, and Elon Musk is the reason why all of this is happening. He wanted his business to be used more in South Africa, but it looks like it's going to be used even less as a result of what has been happening. A lot of people, I don't know if you've been aware, but a lot of people have been using Starlink on the down low. They were getting it in various countries and using what is known as the roaming option. They're getting it in Zambia, not Zambia. Yeah, Zambia, I think. Zimbabwe, what's this? In Botswana, in Lesotho. So people have been getting Starlink in all of those countries. And there've also been some businesses that have been selling Starlink locally, like this company called Ikasa Sepush. But they're not the only ones. They're just the ones that were identified. And it looks like that is all going to come to an end right now. One of the reasons I think that Elon Musk has been pushing for Starlink so much is that at Starlink, they probably realized how popular it was in South Africa and how many people were using it on the down low in South Africa and how much of a business opportunity they had. South Africa is the price. They want that South African market. They want those 40,000 commercial farms, the police stations, the schools. Think about it, 40,000 commercial farms. I think there's 11,000 police stations or something to that effect. And I know there's 26,000 schools. Just farms, police stations, schools, and the hospitals and the clinics. That's big money. That's big money. All of these places need internet, don't necessarily have great internet. It's a good business opportunity for the Starlink company to have, right? So they've been basically doing a Shaka Zulu cow horn formation, right? Zimbabwe, Botswana, Lesotho, and trying to Shaka Zulu this thing so that they can kwaza, like Shaka used to say, cow horn formation was Shaka's basic strategy in addition to using that shortened spear to kwaza, basically. So that's what they've been trying to do. But it looks like the party's over. There are media reports now that Starlink has actually started cutting off users in South Africa for using its roaming options in an unauthorized territory. Starlink has been reportedly emailing users of its Roam Unlimited and global roaming plans in South Africa over the weekend to notify them that their service has been suspended. The email says, "You are currently using Starlink in an unauthorized territory. As a result, your service will be suspended effective immediately." And then it says, "As outlined in your terms of service, Starlink availability depends on many factors, including obtaining or maintaining the necessary regulatory approvals, which are subject to change. Starlink has given its users two options: cancel the service or access it from an authorized country where it has officially launched. As soon as we receive regulatory approvals to turn on Starlink services, we will let you know." That's what Starlink has said. So it's definitely a regression. So that White House meeting has actually turned out worse for Starlink users in South Africa. It's turned out worse because the issue was raised in Parliament when Solimalatsi was summoned or went, however you want to interpret it there. The issue was raised, but listen, Chief, people are using this thing already in the country. Can you explain this? The minister said he's going to look into it. ICASA issued a statement that they would deal with it, and that's what's happening now. Now, this is something that Elon Musk has caused. This problem is his creation. This is his baby. He made this problem. And we need to talk about how he moved to create this particular thing. The reason why a lot of action wasn't being taken is because ICASA and the regulators, they were turning a blind eye to all of this. They viewed it as being something that could be tolerated. Elon Musk was applying for a license. They were giving him some grace to be able to, apply for the license, participate in the process. And it looks as if now they are changing their mind and their approach. I think Elon Musk had a lot to do with these consequences. And I also think that he's the reason why we're in this place. I think Elon took a variety of decisions that affected South Africa that were made by the Trump administration. He was influential before, Trump got into the Oval Office. There's that window period where the incoming president is preparing, appointing various people, speaking to various people. that period has a lot of influence in and of itself. That's why you saw the Project 2025 and all of these discussions happening, because people understood that whatever is set up for day one is also important, and that build up to occupying the office after the election results are announced is also important. I think Elon was influential in that. And we heard reports that he was spending every day at Mar-a-Lago, which is Trump's hotel in Florida. So if you think about what happened on day one of the Trump administration, Trump signed Executive Order 14169, right? I don't know how they number these executive orders, whether it's 14,169 or it's Executive Order 14169. And that was titled Reevaluating and Realigning United States Foreign Aid. And that led to the cancellation of US aid, right? That cancellation led to impacts in South Africa because under US aid was that program, which is the president's emergency program for AIDS relief. And it was providing support for purchasing ARVs in South Africa, which has up to 5.5 million who are living with HIV and have to take these treatments in order to stay alive to prevent the advancement of the disease, and also to suppress, keep their CD4 count at a certain level, all of that science that you have learned in primary school and high school. I don't know when they teach HIV stuff anymore, but we all did it in school. You understand what I'm talking about, right? So there are actually more than 8 million people living in South Africa with HIV, and there are 5.5 million people who are actually living on ARVs. Some people obviously have HIV, but they're not taking their treatments, or they're not on ARVs, whatever the case may be. But if you pull away funding that is for ARVs, and that funding is no longer available to the people, those people may likely die. And that decision is something that we saw even leading to a confrontation between Marco Rubio and Elon Musk. And Elon Musk seems to have prevailed because that funding has fallen away. We've seen the Minister of Finance in South Africa discussing the impacts of that shortfall. That was a squeeze. Round about the same time, Elon Musk withdrew the Starlink application for an ICASA license towards the end of January. And then early in February, there was the order of the 7th of February titled Addressing Egregious Actions of the Republic of South Africa. And at Section 2, it said, it is the policy of the United States that as long as South Africa continues these unjust and immoral practices that harm our nation, the United States shall not provide aid or assistance to South Africa. And the United States shall promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping from government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation. There's been no property confiscation. If you look at the narratives that Elon Musk was amplifying at the time, you look at the right-wing podcasters, the narratives that they were amplifying at the time, you could see that there was a coordinated public relations campaign being played out within right-wing podcast society. And that narrative is what was then reflecting in Donald Trump's addresses, in Donald Trump's speeches. And I think Elon Musk had a lot to do with it. Maybe Peter Thiel and other people in the back of, the communication scenes had a lot to do with it as well, because we all know about this PayPal mafia, so to speak. But those were strong hand, strong arm tactics. And they were not necessarily tactics that were going to lead to ingratiation with the audience. Basically, what Elon Musk chose were mafia rules. If you watch the Pablo Escobar Netflix series, one of the things that I think is called Narcos, you'll get the character at the beginning. He says, plata or plomo. That's the option I'm giving you. Plata or plomo. Take the money or take the gun. And effectively, that's what Elon Musk was trying to do, squeezing South Africa, threats of removal from AGOA, all of these other things. There are other factors as well. The tensions with the issues about association with Iran, the issues around Israel and Gaza. All of these things were already making South Africa something of an hostile nation within the Trump administration's perspective. We saw people like Marco Rubio already issuing, statements early in January, February. We saw Ted Cruz as well issuing statements. And I think Elon took advantage of that for his own commercial purposes, the purpose of trying to get Starlink in South Africa without having to comply with the ICASA regulations around local ownership at 30%. And just to explain again, the way that works is that international companies create a local structure. There's already a Starlink South Africa registered, and you can see it on the SIPC if you want to go check that, right? And what then happens is that Starlink has a share of the Starlink International, and then you give local ownership for the Starlink that is local. So the people who, it's the same thing that Vodafone did with Vodacom, right? There's an international company known as Vodafone. They created an entity in South Africa, Vodacom South Africa, and that entity then provides shares to local owners, etc., local business people, and you comply with the BE regulations in that way. I don't have a problem with BE regulations in the sense that they do create local ownership, and they are supposed to create wide local ownership. So people who work employee schemes, for instance, that becomes a way for people to get a share of the profits. And I think it's okay for people to get a share of the profits, because business is not necessarily just for the interest and purposes of the business owner. You also have to make sure that there's corporate social responsibility, that you're plowing back. India has got strict laws on ownership that Elon Musk complied with. China has multiple rules and regulations, and they basically can end up benefiting from your production in their country, because you'll end up seeing their products looking very similar to your products, right? Which is what Apple learned with Foxconn. Foxconn is making the iPhones. All of a sudden, Huawei is making great phones. So there's something there. So Elon has made all of these compromises everywhere for his businesses to operate, India, in China, etc. But he was like, I'm not going to make that compromise for the country that he's actually a citizen of, which is South Africa. That's something that I think is worth talking about in and of itself. So in as much as BEE has a lot of these criticisms, which I think are fair, some of the criticisms I think are unfair and a part of this narrative that is being driven by certain people to prevent themselves from participating in nation building and in corporate social responsibility and in understanding the dynamics of whatever terrain they are. You can't have an extractive industry like telecommunications taking money to America without leaving some at home. You know, Denzel Washington used to say, I'm leaving with something. I'm living with something. I'm living here with something. Basically, every nation has to make sure that they're living with something when a multinational comes into their country, and they have to make sure that that doesn't just become an extraction project for that particular entity. Because let's assume that Elon Musk gets 60% share of the internet usage market. That means middle class South Africa, corporate South Africa, government is using, that could take out a lot of billions out of South Africa. Of course, you tax some of that revenue, but companies also are very creative in avoiding tax. And we've seen that there have been discussions around illicit flows and tax avoidance by multinational companies where they don't end up contributing their share. And then they sit on reserves in the bank accounts, and they don't make investment in infrastructure on the ground. And these satellites are already orbiting all over the place. The equipment is not made locally. So there's not really much of a benefit to the South African economy outside of this type of a BEE structure. And maybe there's a big conversation about how to restructure it. But Elon was like, I'm not even going to play this game. I'm going to force you guys to go my way or the highway. I'm going to get my guy, Trump, to squeeze you. And that's what he was pursuing. And I think this brings us to an ethical issue with the Starlink licensing and the approach that Elon Musk took. And I'm going to go through my thinking around this. Number one, South Africa is a democracy with free and fair elections. Many African countries don't have that. But the media in South Africa is robust. The IEC is independent. The people who get elected have been chosen by the people, right? Laws in and of themselves, the legislation, are passed through multiple stages of public consultation and revision. They go to every province. They talk to the people. Sometimes political parties play the game. They bus people in. But you can go and participate. You can give your views, etc. The laws that are then passed by the democratically elected individuals are laws that have been passed in a free and fair, transparent process with public participation. And thus, they are much better laws than any laws that were passed during apartheid, when a large part of the community was prevented from even voting and participating in democracy and were arrested for even saying that they should have the vote. Everything that is happening now is happening democratically. Whether we like the laws or not, they have been democratically put in place. They are democratic instruments, right? This is not the product of a dictatorship. This is not the product of Mugabe decreeing from somewhere that take the land, do that, do this, do that. No, these things have gone through systems. In addition, we must be aware that the South African legal system is robust. Politicians have been held accountable. Just now, the Western Cape High Court banned or prevented Hlophe from being appointed to the JSC. We saw Jacob Zuma going to prison for contempt of court. We saw a variety of things happening. We saw the various court judgments supporting the public protector's finding when it was against Jacob Zuma with Nkandla. We've seen a variety of decisions made by the courts showing that they don't fear politicians. The one thing that I could criticize the courts for is that they've been better able at holding politicians accountable than they've been better able at holding big companies like Vodacom accountable, because Vodacom owes people money out here. They owe Makate, but they don't want to pay Makate. When Zuma does something, we're told that, Zuma is disrespecting the judiciary. When Vodacom doesn't pay Makate for years and years and years, we're not told that Vodacom is doing Stalingrad, Vodacom is disrespecting the judiciary, etc., etc. Judiciary, you guys need to be aware that we are aware that you guys are not moving on Vodacom with the same energy, with the same level of zest and zeal that you moved against Zuma. And that can undermine your credibility long term. Just be aware that we are aware. We see what you guys are doing. And be careful about that, because even though I've said that some of these judgments have happened, some of them have had question marks around. But many people who say that they want Starlink like the fact that the courts ruled against Hlophe. They like the fact that the courts said Zuma must go to prison, and they supported those decisions. So if you liked the fact that the constitution is strong, the courts can protect constitutional rights and send Zuma to prison, prevent Hlophe from going to the JSC, why do you have a problem with laws that have been passed in a democratic nation with all of these instruments and institutions working? Sometimes the courts don't work as fast as they should, right? Sometimes people who should have been convicted are acquitted, because we've seen a lot of cases being bungled, evidence going missing. I don't even know what happened with Malusi Boy's case there, because they were saying they had a strong case. This guy was giving government contracts to people who were in gangs in the Western Cape. All of a sudden, that case is gone. I don't know whether, the people implicated in that have made the witnesses plata or plomo. I don't know what's going on there. So I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think that it's clear that there's a democracy at work here. There's a democracy at work. Therefore, it is unethical for Elon Musk to use his relationship with a powerful man like Donald Trump to try to revise democratically passed laws and policies that he doesn't like. If he wanted those laws and policies to be changed, he can contribute to political parties, make donations, campaign. You're a South African citizen. Come and play the game, Baba. Get voted in. Go to parliament and argue. Why do you want a special lane for you? You want a VIP lane. You want, what is it called? At the airport, what is the priority lane? You want a priority lane for yourself. You want to come only as an investor. It's a weird thing that he's trying to brand himself as in this particular instance, because he is a South African, right? Even though he denies it and tries to downplay it, I don't think he's actually revoked or abdicated from his citizenship. So it still holds, actually. He probably has that passport somewhere and maybe has even used it, right? So it's unethical for him to try to force a democratic nation which has done these things democratically. It's unethical to give a license and hence billions in market access over years. How much money is he going to make as a reward to someone who has attacked the reputation of South Africa and moreover put the lives of South African citizens at risk? ARV treatments were keeping and are keeping people alive. He's put people's lives at risk. Some people may have even died as a result, or may even die as a result of losing ARVs, as a result of Elon Musk pushing for the cancellation of US aid. These things that he have done have real world consequences for real people on the ground. Rewarding somebody for that, to me, seems unethical. So even if the technology is good, I think that the apple has been poisoned by this Andrew Tate version of Tony Stark. Andrew Tate version of Tony Stark. That's what I think Elon is. He thinks that he is the white version of Prince T'Challa. Wakanda forever. I never freeze. He thinks that but he's Andrew Tate of Tony Stark. He's not even Tony Stark right now, even though Tony Stark, ironically, is based on him in a sense, because when they're shooting the movies, that actor was actually spending a lot of time with Elon trying to actually see what are the mannerisms of a tech billionaire. I mean, the guy turned out to be the Andrew Tate version of Tony Stark, which is supposed to be you. You were supposed to be Tony Stark, bruh, and now you're Andrew Tate. See your life. See your life, Elon. Anyway, I'm saying, given Elon Musk government licenses and contracts now, would be like basically giving a victim of my 11. It would be like the victim of my 11 giving my 11, the latest iPhone and tickets to watch Sinners at, Rosebank in 4 Max for my 11 robbing you. No, you can't do that. You can't. If my 11 says you're going to give me, and then you're like, no, not only am I going to give you my 11, my 11 would say, I take your child, I put him in oven. You're not going to give me. You're going to give me. Then you say, not only am I going to give you, how about I take you out next week and we go to the wine route? And how about I take you shopping to various places? How about I take you to some establishments where you can see some professional Hosh curry mimers, shaking that thing. My 11, you such a great guy for... No, that would be bizarre. It would be illogical. And jokes aside, that's exactly the same situation Elon is saying. He's saying, I've squeezed you, reward me with the contract. Give me. How is Elon different from my 11? In terms of ethics, how is it different? Right? So the technology is good, but the man has come with a funny approach and an approach that is unethical. When Elon was doing all of this stuff, he was expecting Trump to fight for him. And Trump fought for him. People were summoned to the White House. They went to the White House. However, Trump did his part. But I don't think that Trump is going to keep this fight on. Trump may not actually exert pressure on South Africa further over this. And in that element, Elon may have actually overplayed his hand. Think about where things are right now. Elon Musk is out of the Department of Government Efficiency Doge. He's out. He may come back at a later stage, but I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think so is because of the second thing I'm about to say. He has been criticizing the big and beautiful bill, saying, no, a bill cannot be, both beautiful and big. And then he went onto Twitter and started, a rant against this particular bill. His criticisms are not necessarily invalid. It's just that Trump doesn't roll like that. And I think Trump has allowed him a few times to say things where Trump was like, this guy, Trump is about to Jacob Zuma this guy. And he's going to find out. He's going to find out. Already, I've seen lots of criticism from right-wing voices saying that Elon is being too fresh for his own good. And, what does this remind me of, this kind of Elon Musk situation? It reminds me of the story of Shaka Zulu and his relationship with Mzilikazi. So Shaka had a good relationship with one of his generals, Mzilikazi. And Mzilikazi sometimes was testing Shaka's patience, because he was just doing whatever he wanted. And at a certain point, Shaka was then like, no, deal with this guy. And then Mzilikazi had to flee. And that's what led to the creation of the Ndebele tribe in Zim. And I was listening to the statistician general talking about an interesting story about how certain tribes dealt with Mishoshe, in particular, how he dealt with Mzilikazi as Mzilikazi was moving, etc. And this reminds me of that story in terms of Shaka and Mzilikazi relationship. Right now, Trump is Shaka and Elon is Mzilikazi. And he has been talking out of the side of his mouth. He was even at some point threatening to remove the sell-out Republican congressman next year in November. And that may be something that actually may not work, but it'll also create lots of opponents for him. And we're going to talk about that towards the end, just in terms of how his impact may be limited. He's thinking that, no, I'm going to deal with this guy. I'm going to sort ABC out. I'm going to be able to deal with South Africa and everything. That may not be available to you as an option now, fam. Real talk. I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man. I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man, Elon Musk. Those facilities are much diminished as things stand right now. So South Africa right now could be in a good position just to wait out the Trump administration on some of the issues, and the Starlink issue in particular. The reason why a lot of stuff was being done in the first 100 days under the Trump administration is because everyone understands that he's going to go into lame duck territory around about 2027. right? A president who is not returning has no positions to offer. He'll not coming back to office, so he can't use the pressure of the office. That limits how much he can do and how much people are going to be loyal to him to the bitter end. Towards the end, people are not going to be, it's not going to be the party of Trump anymore. It's just going to be the party post-Trump. He may still have influence. He may still be able to, especially in the South and parts where, Rust Belt and areas like that, maybe his voice will have a bigger, impact. But he's not going to be on the ticket. And that's going to already start affecting things. This is why everyone is trying to do stuff early now, so that in the next year and a half, Trump can enforce and threaten, and those things can then become locked in. It's harder to reverse things than it is to get them going with a character like Trump, because Trump will do it immediately and then push back if judges are resisting, etc., etc. And then some stuff will stay on the scoreboard, right? But once he gets into lame duck territory, then the dynamics shift. In 2027, the American media, donors, party supporters, they start looking to the next election, the next leader, the next direction of the entity. And the election cycle has been starting earlier and earlier and earlier. So after midterms, Americans are going to move on. And also, the midterms may not be good for the Republicans. With the kind of unpopularity that some of the policies that they are pushing through have right now, they're not necessarily going to do well. If Elon gets himself involved, his brand has been deeply unpopular on the streets. He may contribute to even more losses in the midterms. Typically, the governing party does poorly, the one that is occupying the White House, in the midterms. I think the Joe Biden administration bucked that trend to a little bit. There was this whole red wave. That red wave never materialized. But by and large, the trend, I think, will hold, right? So Elon getting himself involved may actually end up worse. It's already going to be a tough day on the midterm day for the Republicans. But it may be even tougher if Elon gets involved because of what happened in April. In April, Elon Musk tasted bitter defeat. His preferred candidate lost dismally in the race for a seat in Wisconsin. So what happened was Susan Crawford, a Democrat, won the race for a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Crawford is a liberal judge from Dane County. She defeated Elon Musk's preferred candidate, Brad Schimmel, I think is the name, who's a former Republican attorney general and a conservative judge from Waukesha County. So what happened there is Elon got on the ground. Groups associated with Musk were spending millions, giving people offers of millions to boost his candidacy, right? It was the most expensive judicial contest in American history. But all of that money doesn't change Andrew Tate, Tony Stark, into, T'Challa, Tony Stark, Wakanda forever. No. The people said, no, we don't want this guy. We don't want anything associated. It was a stinging defeat for the world's richest man. All of that money could not buy likability, because you need real charisma on the ground. And if people don't like you, they'll start doing things to your cars. They'll start rejecting your candidates. And imagine now if Elon goes and chooses and backs a lot of Republicans because he can afford to primary people, right, and make their lives very difficult. Let's say his candidates win the primaries. How will they do in the general? They're going to do dismally, just like what we saw in April. April is just now. We're in June now, 4th of June. When I'm recording this, you're watching it on the 5th probably, or the 6th, or whenever. If you're coming back to watch my old content 5 years from now to see what I was saying 5 years ago, well, this is what I was saying. Welcome, viewer from the future. We're going to have viewers from the future, and we're going to have viewers from all around the world. And that will help the channel grow. So thank you. Welcome, viewers from other countries and viewers from the future. Welcome to the present. Your past, my present, and now my past also, because we're watching in the future, 2030. But point I'm making is, right now, as I'm making this video in the present, Elon has been not doing well in terms of getting positive electoral outcomes. He helped Trump with money, but Trump won because Trump is Trump. Right? Elon didn't add anything to that engine. In fact, even if Elon hadn't given Donald Trump money, Donald Trump was still going to win. Elon didn't make a contribution. Trump will take the money. But I don't think that Elon was a factor. He may think he was a factor, but he wasn't a factor. Trump, literally, after that assassination attempt, I mean, you could see that the Republican base is going to show up, right? And there was nothing that Kamala had that was equivalent. I mean, she didn't even have a speech that was strong enough. She was a good candidate, and she wasn't good enough. Because think about, I'm going to give you just like a thought I had. When will.i.am made the first Yes We Can song, the speech was already viral. There was a speech that Obama gave that was known around the world already. I already knew that speech, right? And then the song just helped. But the song wasn't the viral moment in and of itself. will.i.am couldn't find anything that Kamala had said to the point where he had to sing, not use Obama's words with him doing a voiceover. He had to just actually sing a song now and get creative. And also, the moment was gone. Beyonce, will.i.am, who else was there? Cardi B, all of these people, they could, Taylor Swift, all the horsemen of Hollywood could not get Kamala over the hill, right? That's how tough that election was for Kamala. I mean, there are various factors, misogyny and all of that as well. But fundamentally, she didn't have enough, right? So Elon didn't make a difference in that respect, is what I'm trying to say. The one election where we can measure is where he tried to put his money on the scale and it backfired, blew up in his face. So he's not going to have the same kind of cachet within the Republican Party for the whole Republican Party to fight for South Africa to take Starlink. That's the point that I'm getting to. There's not enough juice in that particular, flask, if you will, for people to be able to make a smoothie from this thing. Smoothie is not going to materialize anymore, guys. So this is where things stand. I think it's great technology. It's necessary technology. Now I think people have to look at other options. Amazon apparently has this technology. They don't have the same spread as Elon Musk has, but he did this right now. If you're a Starlink user or someone who wants to use Starlink, who do you blame but Musk? At this point, you got to blame Musk for this. I used to like watching The Cosby Show. I used to enjoy it. Thought it was a wholesome show. I'd laugh and everything. But Cosby was putting roofies in people's drinks. He messed up the show. We can't watch the show anymore because of Cosby. Right? I used to listen to a lot of R. Kelly music. I can't listen to that R. Kelly music. Feeling on whose booty? Whose booty were you trying to feel on, R. Kelly? I can't listen to that music anymore. R. Kelly ruined his music for me. Because every time I'm like, who's this about? Who is he? I can't do it. In as much as the music objectively is excellent, it has been sullied by the entity. And I'm not so strong enough to be able to maintain perfect separation between the art and the artist. I can't claim that I'm the one who's able to do that, right? So point I'm making is that Starlink for South Africa has now been enmeshed in the shenanigans that Elon Musk chose to get a license in South Africa. And those shenanigans may have poisoned the apple. I don't know what you think, but that's how I think it's going to be right now. I think we may have to look at alternatives because he's ruined it for everybody, even the people who wanted this technology. There was a time when I was willing to be a person who would look for a Tesla if it ever got to South Africa, work towards getting it. I don't think that I'm in a position where I can just say I'm going to get a Tesla or whatever. But it was in my mind that, okay, if this thing comes in, I like electric cars. I like the idea. I'm going to get a Tesla. Why not? Now my dream car in the electric car range is a BYD because I can't deal with Elon. I can't do it. I think I respect what he accomplished with Tesla, but if I had to choose an electric car, I go BYD before I go Tesla. And I think Starlink is now at that point. Same. I think the same. I use Twitter. I use it a lot. We built Twitter. Elon bought Twitter, but we built Twitter. The streets, Black Twitter, the different communities, we made this platform provide the memes, we provide the content, we provide the culture, the energy. So I'm not going to necessarily leave Twitter because Elon took it over, go to Blue Sky or whatever. No, I'm going to stay on Twitter. But these other entities that he's trying to bring in, it is what it is, man. But I don't know what you think. Do you think that Starlink is still necessary in spite of the man? Are you separating the man from the business? And do you think there's still space for that? Do you think that the BE laws should be changed for Starlink, or that, equity equivalence should be used, which is what I've seen people arguing for, mainly from the DA? Or do you think that these shenanigans just have poisoned the well for Elon? Let's have a conversation in the comments. I'll meet you there.